Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to do the 11.3 patch notes in-depth analysis. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Come by, check out the rest of the content as well. I've already done a support tier list and an AD carry tier list. I'll have that linked at the beginning of the video. And then we do tons and tons of other content for each new patch, fresh patch notes, fresh tier lists. And I'm always adding in more champion guides, more topical guides, like how to one-trick better, how to macro better, micro better, almost anything you can think of, we have a guide for it. So come by, check it out. And then we stream every night on YouTube. Gonna try to start around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, go till 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Very friendly, chill community. We'd love to have you. I'm happy to talk about anything that you want to talk about, league or otherwise. So come by, check it out. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So this is a pretty big patch notes. I'm going to try to get through it as fast as possible. Let's see if we can get this in about 15 minutes. My wife is skeptical. I'm sure all of you are skeptical as well. But we're going to try to start making these videos, inching them into being faster at least. Okay, so Anivia, problematic bird, and what I've got over here on the right is the win rates for 11.2 right here. The win rates for the first few days of 11.3, so we can kind of see how it's impacted it over the last couple of days. Then I've got the win rates in Pro on patch 11.2, and then I've got Font of Life, which is a super important rune that we'll talk about once we get to Chemtech Purifier changes. Okay, so Anivia, very problematic bird, had a 56% win rate on the last patch. So what are they doing with her? They're taking down the explosion damage by 5, and then they're reducing the AP scaling by 5%. So minor hit to her damage, and then Glacial Storm is still going to be about the same. And she leaves that on in fights a lot of the time, so I don't think that's going to matter too much. So it did move her win rate down about 3% or so it brought her down to like 53, 54%. So perfectly fine. She's still going to be really strong. She still controls waves really well. Excellent clearing, and with some of these new movement speed builds where sometimes she takes Phase Rush, sometimes she takes Ludens. So there's a lot of different runes and items that allow her to reposition, which is something that she really lacked in the past. So yes, she doesn't roam as well in the side lanes as some of the other champions in mid lane, but she's still going to be super strong, especially in team fight, siege type of comps. Okay, Cho Gath, really weird nerf. He did have a high win rate. He had like a 57% win rate. In solo queue on the previous patch. No one ever played him in pro, and so he had a 56% win rate. Hardly anyone played him in solo queue either at 4%, so it's a little weird, but his damage is notched down. He's still going to be strong. He's still a huge beneficiary of the Chem tanks that allows him to get in there and start his combo and chomp squishy champions. So that's still going to be intact. He's just going to be a little bit weaker in heavy sustained fights against other tanks. So sort of strange, but probably okay. Elise doing really well at higher elo brackets, so she almost wasn't really played in pro at all last season, which is weird because if she's strong, she usually sees some pro play. So maybe people are just preferring Nidalee or other like highly aggressive early game AP picks, but she was doing very well in the solo queue environment. She was at 54, bordering on 55%, so seems okay. Dropping her damage later on by 20, although it's the same early, so that'll hurt her all in. And then this Frenzy is probably only going to matter when she's taking Baron and things like that, because usually she doesn't stand there and auto-attack people a ton. Usually it's just kind of one rotation, they die or they don't. But it will be helpful. So, little tap, she'll probably be okay. Ezreal, now this is going to matter a lot for Ezreals that are very skilled with him. So this is basically increasing most of his damage by about 1/12, so about 8.5% or so. So that's really good, especially when he's getting some of these higher AD items like Ravenous Hydra. Having a better ratio on that Q can be a big deal. And low-key, the Essence Reaver change last patch is actually really good on him. I had an Ezreal in my game last night who rushed the Essence Reaver plus Manamune, and then eventually I think went up to Duskblade. And that was a really good, very hard-hitting combination. So I think Essence Reaver can find a way into his build, and I think it will be very strong. I was thinking maybe he would substitute the Essence Reaver for Manamune to have a faster start early on. And that's what this guy did. He didn't even get tier. He just straight rushed Essence Reaver. But he did end up getting tier eventually. So, anyways, I think that's pretty solid. Now, his win rate was about the same. It was 48% last patch. It's about 48% this patch. However, the big difference is that people are actually, more people are playing him on this patch. So he's got about a 49% win rate, but he's got a 17% play rate versus last patch. I think he also had a 49% win rate. Yeah, but only a 10% play rate. So that means that he is getting better because you're getting a lot more amateur people that don't play him as much. So it's less one-tricks that are playing him on the new patch. So it is moving up a little bit, although it's hard to tell because he's becoming more popular. Okay, Ivern saw pretty much no pro play. I don't know why that's highlighted in yellow, if I did that or somebody else did that, but there is the one famous Wonder game that he played, right, where he played Ivern in the top lane. But that's not why they're nerfing him. I mean, they did mention it here. I think they gave him a shout out. Something about wandering in the jungle. Yeah, there it is. So they gave him a shout out, but that was really a mean game. I think they were against one of the worst teams in Europe, and they just wanted to play something for fun because they knew they were going to win anyways. And I think he was only played one other time. Yeah, so pretty much no presence in pro, but in solo queue, I think he had like a 55, 56% win rate. So, and that's, you know, primarily in kind of the diamond and lower bracket where he was super popular. So, knocking 20% off of his seeds, or off of his shield. So, that's probably okay. He'll still be decent. He'll just scale a little bit less. And then, oh, that's why it is, because I highlighted wondering. And then his base health is going down by 10 per level, so that's 50 health at level 5, 100 health at level 10. So that's probably fine. He'll still be decent. I think when I looked at the win rate changes that he lost like 3% or so. So he's still at like 52.5, 53%. So that's okay. Now, Jinx, this looks really good for Jinx. I mean, she is losing 60 health, base health, which is bad, but she is gaining 25 range on her switcheroo, and she's basically attacking 60% faster, so going from a negative 25% penalty down to a negative 10% penalty, so that's a lot of extra DPS, and the Flame Chompers are arming faster, but she still is an immobile 80 carry with very limited CC options. She can follow up, but she can't really start fights super well if she hits people with the Q. That's okay. But I still feel like there are probably going to be better choices. Obviously, no pro play on her, but even in solo queue, her win rate did not move that much. But once again, kind of like with Ezreal, she's just becoming more popular. So she's 52% right here with a 2.25% play rate, and then over here, she's actually 49% play rate, but she's being played almost 4 or 5 times as much, right? Almost has a 10% play rate. So once again, kind of like with the Ezreal effect, you're getting people that don't really know how to play her playing her because other analysts are saying she's going to be really good on this patch and they want to try her out. She's got some cool skins or something, and that's why her play rate or her win rate actually dropped 2 or 3%, even though these are good buffs. So it's hard to tell because of the influx of new players playing her, but she's okay. I still think she's going to have problems though, just because of the way the meta is functioning right now. She's like all right at everything, but she's not as much of a powerhouse in the early game, and it can still be difficult for her to maneuver around fights later because of her lack of mobility. Unless she gets a kill or an assist, forget excited. So anyway, she's okay. Now Karma, this one might be a little perplexing to a lot of people out there because, you know, there are some powers that be in the analyst community that think Karma is really strong right now, and you do see her some in pro, and I know that some people like to emphasize that enchanters are super strong in pro and underappreciated, but I think they're about appropriately appreciated. She's got a 25% win rate in pro, mostly played as a top laner. And so she was having some real problems. And then even if you go and you look into solo queue, I think she had like a 48% win rate or something to that effect. It was not very good. Actually one of the lowest win rate champions that's not like a meme support. So yeah, she had a 48% coming into first couple of days here. I think she was still pretty low. Yeah, 49%, and then 6% play rate versus 4% play rate. So yeah, about 50% more people are trying her out, and the win rate is marginally higher. So change the camera here. So yeah, these buffs were definitely necessary to try to make her more relevant in pro and to try to make her more relevant in solo queue. It seems like she should be good, right? She can spam her Qs, do some damage that way. She has a cheap, repeatable shield that gives people movement speed. She has a huge team buff with her shield later, and you've got to be thinking, oh man, well, she's got to be good, right? Because you can remember the good old days where she had a 54, 53% win rate. The problem is a lot of the supports now just have overloaded kits and just synergize way better with a lot of the items that are out there. You know, the truth is that she doesn't have that much CC, right? Her W is a point click, basically, if you can stay close to them, and it's a root, but she really doesn't have an ultimate. Like, the ultimate shield portion is what got nerfed all those years ago, And she has only very rarely poked her head, you know, out of the abyss into a high win rate. She did last year on patch like 10.4 or something like that. But a lot of that was they changed her shield to last for 2.5 seconds instead of 1.5 seconds, and then she went up to like a 53 or 54% win rate, and then they pushed her right back down within like 2 or 3 patches. So she's okay, but they really need to be able to buff either the movement speed on her shield again, or buff the amount of power that she gets off of her empowered shield. Otherwise, she's an interesting pick. I know that there's actually some content creators that have her as like S-class, like the highest tiered support right now. And I really disagree with that. I've played with Karma even after these buffs, and she just gets annihilated by most champs. I mean, if you're really good on her, it can work, but you're definitely working uphill. Just a sitting duck for like Leona engages, Nautilus engages, and then she's going to get outscaled by things like Yuumi and Sona and all that stuff. So anyways, Mordekaiser probably not going to matter too much. He gets to use his grab a little bit more often, so maybe he can use it twice in fights instead of once. So, nice little buff. The fact that Riftmaker is getting gutted is really bad, though. More on that in a little bit. So, I think overall it's going to hurt him. Olaf definitely deserves some nerfs. I know there were some other patch notes analysts saying, oh, you don't want to hit Olaf too hard. Olaf was probably the most oppressive champion last patch at almost all levels of play. Right, so in pro play, he had a 94% presence, picked or banned in 94% of the games with a 57% win rate, which is way over the top. Yes, Kai'Sa's over the top too. Yes, she probably should have been nerfed at some point, but Olaf definitely did deserve it. And they're hitting him in 4 different ways, really. They're hitting his base stats on his health, they're hitting his passive on Berserker Rage, and they're hitting 2 of his items with Sterix and Gore Drinker, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But yeah, he definitely deserved it, although it did pull him down a lot more than intended. He had a 56% win rate in solo queue, and then in now he's down to 51. So that's probably a little hard. I think they could have gone without nerfing his base stats on his health. I think maybe just tapping his passive, or just tap his items and just wait and see how that works, because he really doesn't have a lot of other items he can get comfortably other than Gore Drinker. He could maybe get something other than Sterix, but he really needs that too. So he's really getting hit the hardest of any champion, I think, by those 2 items, because he definitely cannot get other things comfortably. So anyways, I think that's okay, though. He's a particularly toxic champion if he gets ahead, because you can't CC him. It's just so hard to play around him. Even if he misses his axes and he presses Ghost and ult, you're probably still dead, you know, once he gets a couple of kills lead on you. So anyways, I'm okay that he's getting knocked out a little bit. But yeah, that one might have been a little over the top. Okay, Pantheon, one of the most overrated champions right now in pro and solo queue. His pro win rate, he's banned all the time, but his win rate's really not that great. It's 43% in pro, so not fantastic. In solo queue, I think he was at like maybe 53% win rate. So this is really going to hurt him in the jungle quite a bit, and then the cooldown is going to hurt him a little bit as well. So okay, sure. Once again, I'm not really sad if Pantheon gets nerfed out. I think he's pretty toxic in the laning phase with his point-click stun and just his huge amount of base damage. But he is on the clock. He does have to snowball hard. But anyways, interesting champ, I guess. But he is getting nerfed a little bit here. Okay, and then Rammus, this might seem a little weird. He has no pro presence, but in solo queue, he was actually doing quite well. Some analysts were saying that, you know, nerfing of these tanks is pointless, is silly, but this has really been revenge of the tanks if you think about it on patch 5.2 because, or 11.2. You've seen Udyr rising up, Skarner rising up. A lot of the champions, if you look at the win rates on patch 11.2, Udyr, Skarner, Rammus, right? And then you've got, you know, stuff like Olaf, who's tank-ish, not obviously like super tank. But a lot of these champs are, you know, some of the highest win rate champs right now, and a lot of them have skyrocketed. They won, you know, they went up 3 or 4% win rate off of the Chem Tank buffs. It was a very, very big deal that item is 400 gold cheaper. So anyways, Rammus was one of the big beneficiaries there. He has a great matchup in almost every AD jungler right now, particularly when you start talking about gold and lower. He had a 56% win rate. He's excellent with Thornmail. Also, it builds right into his defensive ball curl, and the Grievous Wounds is really strong right now, really necessary. So he just synergizes very well with a lot of the items, the Chem Tank, into Thornmail, into a lot of the other AD champs that are being played in the top lane, like your Camille's and things like that. Just a very solid champion for solo queue. Is there some counterplay to him? Sure, but he's performing very, very well, and he's very consistent. It's hard to mess up Rammus, so they wanted to tap him a little bit there. Rel is already doing very well. I know that some some other, you know, analysts have her down to like tier 3 and are saying she's bad. She's actually extremely good right now. Now, she was bad on release, but if people haven't been keeping up with the stats, you've been missing out. Or if you haven't played against a good rel, you've been missing out, because she's extremely strong now that people know how to play her correctly. Her items didn't really change. No one found out like new items that are strong on her, or there aren't any like new runes. It's the same stuff. It's Aftershock, Locket, and then, you know, either Knight's Vow or Zeke's, or just standard tank items. But people are just better. They've realized you can engage with horse form, right, as well as your, you know, stomp form. They're getting better at the timings on your E and chaining the stuns together, and people are just learning how to play her. And she's a terror right now. I have her, if you watch my support tier list, I'll have it linked in the description. Go watch it. I have her as one of my top 4, right? It's Maokai, Leona, Rel, and Seraphine. My, you know, S-class champions, and I think that's going to continue to be the same. In pro, she's got 61% win rate right now on 46% presence. Super strong. People are prioritizing her more and more and more, because at the beginning of the patch, people weren't really playing her that much, but now that they're figuring it out, they are. And even in solo queue, right, she has a pretty big win rate. You know, 54%, so one of the highest win rate supports right now. So don't sleep on Rel. She's very, very strong right now. Now, I know people want me to play her more on stream. I personally am a lot better on Maokai than I am on Rel, but if you do practice her a lot better, she can be strong. So I'm not really sure why they're buffing her too much here. They're like increasing all these AP ratios. I think that's largely a bait, just because there just aren't a lot of items. Maybe someone will try to get Moonstone on her or something, but I don't think it's going to work. I think Locket's still going to be better. Maybe in the future these AP ratios will matter, but for now, I don't think you're going to want to do it most of the time. It's like maybe like Staff of Flowing Water or something, but I don't think so. I think it's just trying to, you know, just add some YOLO Q in there. And then they, I'm not sure what this change is. Unbind cooldown going to 1 second. Sounds good. So you can change targets more often with your E in a team fight if you want to. And then they fixed a couple of bugs. So anyway, still going to be a super strong champ. Riven, I like these changes. I remember looking at the win rates. It didn't affect him too much because, you know, kind of like what we saw with Jinx and Ezreal, a lot more amateurs are trying out Riven after the changes. So our win rate's about the same. It might even be down a little bit. But for very good Riven players, this is huge. So much of Riven is her cooldowns, and this increases her mobility and her shield. So when she's running away, she can turn fights a lot easier when she comes back in after that shield's off cooldown. So very, very big deal. 2 seconds off of her E. Riven players are going to love that, but it's not going to affect her win rate too much for the average population, just because you're going to have more rookies playing her. Okay, and then Seraphine's getting tapped a little bit. Still going to be super strong. Still very good with Staff of Flowing Water and Moonstone, although she is going to have a little bit of a weaker shield. Just what sets her apart is she has an excellent engage with her ultimate, really good team fighting, really good poke, and just one of the best Moonstone, Staff of Flowing Water users out there. So her win rate is still going to be pretty good. I think it was 55 or 56 as support. Right now it's 53. So it did knock her down a little bit, 2 or 3%, but she's still going to be pretty strong. And then Shyvana, not going to matter that much. It looks cool, but these are not the strengths of AP Shyvana. You're not going to be standing there auto-attacking too much. Usually you try to stay at a distance in Dragon form and just chuck your fireballs. And losing the 20% CDR off of Nashor's Tooth was a really, really big deal, because you don't have a lot of other items that are going to give you that same level of ability haste that aren't mythics. So it's cool. Like, this is going to allow you to take Barons faster and take your camps faster, so that's good. And extra movement speed is good. I mean, it's obviously good, but I don't think that that's going to fundamentally make her like a much, much stronger champion right now. So, and the last time I looked at the win rate, she was still negative win rate. So I think she's fun. She's interesting to play, but she's kind of just getting outdone by other champs. Pretty big buff to Singe, especially the AP Singe, which I think is the best. Last time I looked, people were still going the Rylai's into Mandate into Demonic Embrace. You can do Liandry's, but Liandry's is going to be a bit weaker. The reason why people do stuff like the Rylai's into Mandate is because Mandate is much cheaper than Liandry's. So if you ever play a champion that can comfortably get something like a Mandate and get good value out of it, then it's just going to be better because it's 900 gold cheaper. So he wants Rylai's anyways to slow people down, keep him in the poison longer, allow him to escape better. And since he's already getting Rylai's, you might as well go ahead and get Mandate, because the slow off of Mandate or slow off of Rylai's will trigger Mandate. And then if your teammates hit the person, it gives you the extra movement speed. So it's just really nice, good in team fights if you run with Singed. So I expect him to gain a little bit off of this, maybe like 0.5%, because all those items are going to have decent AP ratios on them. And then we have Silas, a lot less mana on the Q. Usually I think the Kingslayer, the W max, is going to be stronger. But it's nice. I think Q is second, and then Kingslayer itself is getting 5 extra damage, a little bit extra scaling. And this is cool. You're still seeing Sylas some. He did actually have a pretty high win rate in pro, although he wasn't played a lot. He had an 86% win rate, so he was 12-2. But I think he's a cool champion to have in the meta overall. He really makes people think twice, especially at higher elos, about just stacking a whole bunch of ultimates together, right? Just running with the, Galio, Camille into Leona, and just like stacking all of these hard CC, like hard engage ultimates. He can turn that around and turn it against you. So it forces people to think more about skirmishing or think about champs that have more situational ultimates, like Corki, who is played against Sylas sometimes in the mid lane. So anyways, I think he's cool in the meta. I think he shakes it up, forces people to consider different team comps. And he's just a fun champ with a lot of different interesting interactions. So I like it when he's in the meta, as long as he's not too oppressive. And I think in solo queue, he's not too bad right now. He's probably like, I think when I looked, he's like 48, 49%. Okay, Taliyah, real terror in pro right now, just does really fast wave clear, and her combo just completely deletes people later on in the game. Very good ganking and utility with her rock wall, especially against immobile champs that can't jump over the wall without flash. So that is very handy. So they're nerfing her wave clear by about 20%. Her Q is almost all of her wave clear. So that's a very big deal, especially early on. However, they are allowing her to get to lanes faster, so 20% movement speed on her passive. So it's going to take her longer to clear the camps, and she's probably going to take a little bit more damage from them. However, she's also going to be able to get to lane faster. So I think this will move her down, maybe 3% or so, but I think she'll still be viable and strong if you're really good on her. And we're almost out of time, so we're going to keep going here.
You're at about 20 minutes.
Yeah, we're almost at 15 minutes. And then Udyr, this champion is just way too strong. Just really good with Turbo Chem Tank and Deadmans. They are nerfing Deadmans on this patch. Udyr's Phoenix Dance, the AoE, the dot damage is going down a little bit, but the burst is still intact. He's still super fast. People have figured out the Phase Rush plus Deadmans plus Turbo Chem Tank plus all the other movement things you can think of just mean that he's zipping around, and it's so hard to kite him, and he just gets to run around and stun everybody and just be a huge pest in team fights now. So he can actually participate in team fights. Now, his win rate in pro, he has been getting played a lot in pro. It's not that great in pro, but it was fantastic in solo queue, where stuff is a bit less organized. So 49% win rate in pro. And then in solo queue, now I think he's down to like 55%, right? So he went from 56 to 54.5. So he's still going to be very, very strong. He's, top of my tier list for jungle, which I will release probably later today or maybe tomorrow, the jungle tier list. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, super strong champion, huge beneficiary of all this movement speed. Vladimir, okay, he hasn't had a great win rate, but he's not terrible either. So I like that they are just, lowering his ult timer down to 120 seconds. He really needs that for all-ins early. It should have never been 150. So now it's just kind of on par with his contemporaries. So I think overall he's going to be pretty strong. Okay, Lichbane knocking off a little bit of damage. Still going to be strong on the people that want it. But it will nerf, stuff like Fizz, stuff like Echo, even Udyr a little bit, because he does get Lichbane some. So a lot of the champions that get Lichbane have positive win rates, and a lot of them are north of 52%. So tapping that a little bit is probably okay. Most champions have some alternative to it. Horizon Focus, super niche. Not a lot of champs get this outside of Zoe. I guess Fiddlesticks could get it. You could have, stuff like your Xeraths and your Vel'Kozes. So overall, I think pretty good buff. Verdant Berry. Now, this one's pretty big. Banshees is 15 extra AP for no extra cost. This is going to be huge against engaged champs. It's very bad news bears for stuff like Thresh, Bard, Blitzcrank, just anything that's going to have a hard time popping that barrier to start a fight is not going to like this Ashe. So this is going to be an answer that mid laners can get against other mid laners, and it's going to have a lot of collateral impacts on hard engaged champs for melee comps that can't really break the Banshee's Veil that well. So super powerful item, definitely worth considering in a lot of situations now, especially if you're one of those control mages that doesn't have a lot of mobility. So like an Orianna, Syndra, Zoe, things like that. This can definitely help protect you. Very good against things like Karthus also. And then Zhonya's Hourglass going up a little bit in cost. This is going to be very good for your Zeds, your Talons, those other type of AD champs. Last couple of things here, and then we'll get out of here. So Enchanters Staff of Flowing Water. This is fine. They could even knock another 10 AP off, and it would still be a good item. I wish they would put Ability Haste on there at some point, but the buff is worth 1,000 gold each. So if you just buff one person, you're getting 2,000 gold value out of this. So in general, I don't remember the exact numbers, but you're getting somewhere around 4,000 gold value when the buff is active. And you can keep this up a lot in most fights. So still going to be a super powerful item. And then the Chemtech Putrefier. This is going to be one of the more underrated items. Going up to 20 ability haste, this item is going to be almost 100% efficient by itself. I think you end up paying like maybe 100 gold for the Putrefier effect. So very cost efficient, and whenever you heal or shield somebody now, it gives the person that you heal or shielded, their next attack applies grievous wounds to a target for 60%. Now the thing to understand about this is that if you take something like Font of Life that I mentioned earlier, whenever this is up, so whenever you slow or immobilize an enemy champion, they get this debuff over their head. Whenever your ally attacks them, it counts as a heal from you. So that triggers the Putrefier. So that means that if they keep attacking the same target, they can keep this buff up for 7 seconds now, because Font of Life is going to last for 4 seconds. And if you have, some kind of AoE slow or AoE CC, and all of your allies are attacking different teammates, right? If you throw, let's just say, a Maokai ultimate and it hits everybody in a fight, and then your allies start attacking them, it's going to have that Putrefier on them for up to 7 seconds, unless you apply even more CC, and then it works even more. If you didn't know, that also works with Ardent Censer and Staff of Flowing Water. Right, so now if you're Janna and you have Staff of Flowing Water plus Putrefier and you just W someone on the front line, anyone that attacks that person is going to get the Putrefier empowerment and the Staff of Flowing Water empowerment. So it's very, very powerful. So I had someone last night ask me, why are you getting Putrefier on Malachi? He doesn't have any healing or shielding. Yes, but if they walk over a seed in a bush and then they attack them, it applies the Putrefier buff, because that's a slow, that puts Font on them. That means that you can apply that 60% grievous wounds to people. So this is even better for Maokai than the old Putrefier was, because this works with slows with the seeds. So it doesn't just have to be hard CC anymore, it also works with slows. So I think this is going to be a very underrated item. 60% grievous is massive, especially when you're facing stuff like Moonstone. Gore Drinker still going to be around, Conquer, Triumph. There's a lot of healing in there. So very, very powerful item in the right hands. It does compete with things like Staff of Flowing Water in the second slot for a lot of champs. So a lot of people may not get it until third. I really like it second on Maokai. Another huge benefit of getting something like this is if you get Morello, then your AD carry or your mid laner or whatever does not have to get grievous wounds as much, especially when you have this much spread with Font. You can put it on everybody, like very comfortably with a lot of enchanters. So that saves 800 gold on your other champs, which is a very, very big deal, right? That could be the difference between, your Jhin completing his third item or not for that Dragon Soul fight. So really, really powerful item. Probably going to be one of the most underrated items on this patch. That's a very huge deal. So you heard it here first. This is going to be very good, I think. Maybe someone else talked about it, but I think a lot of people are not going to understand just how good this is with Font of Life. And a lot of enchanters are going Guardian anyways, like Seraphine. People are figuring out, hey, if I just don't get bursted out and die to assassins, I'm probably really OP with Moonstone and Staff of Flowing Water, and now Turbo Chemtank. So a lot of enchanters are taking Barrier plus Guardian in combination, and it's just really hard to kill them. Okay, last couple of items. Silvermare Dawn, probably not going to matter. People are still going to sit on the QSS, but if you do need to complete this item, if you are just billionaire rich, then it will have some better stats on it. Iron Spike Whip is going to hurt the wave clear of some of the people that are getting Gore Drinker. Okay, people are still going to get it, though. Phantom Dancer, almost completely worthless as far as I can tell. Could be wrong about that, but I just don't like who's going to get this item, right? Because it's not a mythic. ADCs have to get a mythic in their first couple of items. It's not the Collector, which is OP, which everyone's going to get second item. And then third item, it's not Infinity Edge, which everyone's going to get most of the time as their third item. So I just don't know how it fits into a lot of builds. Maybe on Vayne, but I still don't think so. Because it's like, it's giving you AD instead of attack speed. I wish they would have like doubled down on the attack speed and said, no, this is for champs that don't care about attack speed. It's for the Vaynes, it's for the Callistas, all of that. And just give it like some on-hit damage or more attack speed or something. Because right now, it's just like this really bland vanilla item that's just not worth it. Okay, Mortal Shield Bow getting a couple of buffs. Good news for Samira. A lot of other champs are not going to get this, but there might be some, I think Graves has a build where he gets this sometime, so it's okay. I don't think it's going to rock the boat too much. Nice buff, underpowered item. Lord Dominic's Regards. Seems like it should be very powerful. I thought this would be a lot stronger than it is, but the AD on it is so low at 35 that really you're not going to want to get this until like fourth item. Although I think it can be very good fourth against tanks if you already have grievous wounds like a Putrefier somewhere on your team, then you might be able to get this, and it can help you out against the Udyr's and the Skarners and all that stuff. Final couple of items. Gore Drinker, okay, good. This needed to be nerfed. It's just way too strong. So now it's 8% of your missing health instead of 25%, or instead of 12%. I think that the champs that get it will still be okay. Olaf's still playable. Aatrox, you know, all those champs are still playable, but now they won't just heal to, you know, 100% in a team fight. Leeching Leer. This one's a little undeserved. Not that many champions end up getting Rift Makers. This is really going to slam stuff like Mordekaiser. I mean, that's almost 50% less healing. This is like, you know, 30% less healing or so, 33%. So, yes, it does kind of scale a little bit with the Omni Vamp on the Mythic, but you don't have the spell penetration. So, anyone that got this item, really bad news bears. They're going to have to try to find something else to get, because I think this is just really bad right now. Could be wrong about that, but I think it's bad. Eclipse, Curious Change. So it basically gives you a bigger shield when you activate it, but it gives you less Omni Vamp. So not as good in the laning phase, but it's going to help you out a little bit more against Assassins later on. So strange change. It'll still be about as good as it currently is on champions that want to get that. Ravenous Hydra, Omni Vamp, losing about a third. So if you have other options, you might consider other options. Maybe people try out Blade the Ruined King again. I don't know, but it's okay. It gave way too much healing to begin with. And then Sterix just barely gets tapped for 100 shield. Usually this thing, when people get it, it's going to be like 1,000 shield, so it's knocking about 10% off. Because remember, it scales based on your bonus health, to 100% of your bonus health. So it's okay, but it'll still be a strong item. And then the final items, Force of Nature, okay, very few people get this. This is going to really help out like Skarner and Udyr against mages who really want that movement speed, so they like it. Most other champs probably won't get it. Dead Man's Plate, losing 75 HP. That is a pretty big hit. However, I think that the champs that get this are still going to be pretty strong. And then Frozen Heart, this is actually a huge buff, and it's going to be really, really nice for champions like Leona, maybe Rel, and just other, you know, tank type of champs. Now you have a very heavy armor option that also gives you the extra ability haste, which is good, and gives you a lot of mana, which does matter because you don't have a great presence of mind anymore. It's just really a shell of its former self. So against some champs that can run out of mana early, like Leona can definitely start running out of mana because her cooldowns are so low in fights. Against a heavy AD team, this could actually be quite good, and I think maybe even better than Zeke's if you need that extra tankiness, and if they have a lot of auto attackers. Then it might be even better than Zeke's in some situations. You still have to math it out and see, but I think that it's definitely viable now versus before. It was super, super niche and almost no one would get it. It's something that you might consider now on some of the tanks, especially supports. Anyways, that's going to be it. Didn't get 15 minutes, did get 30 though. We kept it under 45, so we're making progress, yay. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Be sure to watch the stream every night starting around 11. Check out my tier list. We've already got the support one and the 80 carry one up. Jungle one probably be up later today. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.